Welcome back to Bleav in Softball, presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Jenna Becerra, and however you got here today, whether you downloaded the audio version on Apple, Spotify, etc., or you're watching the video on YouTube, thank you and welcome back. Subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your pods. You can follow us on Instagram and X at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. And don't forget about the merch. Click the link in our bio on either page or go to shop.bleav.com to purchase. 3 shirts available for you, covering our bases, safer out, and catch you soon. All right, let's go through today's batting order. First, we are going to be covering our bases. I'm going to share some call-outs. Then we'll head into today's interview with Shelly Carlin, a UCLA alum, part of their first ever softball national championship. Also happens to be my boss and the now owner of the media company that oversees D1 softball. So we're going to talk about amazing perspective that she has across the board. I'm very excited. And then we're going to bring it home and wrap up with some final thoughts. All right, let's go. Covering our bases. We're back with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You know, they have a little bit of almost everything when it comes to sports betting. Basketball fans have been locked in to March Madness, and so far it has not disappointed. I actually tuned in right before the buzzer beater that sent the men's UConn team into the Final Four and was just as shook as anyone else. On the women's sports side, the brand new pro soccer team in Denver set an NWSL attendance record opening weekend with over 63,000 fans. Unbelievable. And there's plenty more going on. So no matter what you're into, there's something for you. Check out all FanDuel has to offer from same game parlays and more. Because we believe in softball and we believe in FanDuel. And we believe in softball season and women's sports overall. So in terms of what I've been up to, in week 7, I actually called women's basketball postseason. Stanford hosted the WCC regular season champions, LMU, in the first round of the WBIT. It was a tight game. Tensions were high. Stanford was down some starters and just a historic year for LMU coming into it. So all the makings of why we love postseason college sports. I also called a baseball doubleheader that weekend. Stanford hosted Utah Valley for a 4-game series. I was solo on the broadcast for Sunday's doubleheader games. That was 2 and 3 in the series. Stanford ended up sweeping, and it was much needed direction for them as a team at this point in the year. To me, it's always interesting to go back and forth between baseball and softball because there are obvious similarities of the diamond sports, of course, but also the nuances affect the game a little bit differently, which I think is pretty cool and fascinating. And there's something fun about college baseball. The common denominator between the two, I think, is how important it is to have the right energy. That's the mentality, the preparation, all of these things that are true for really every sport and every athlete. For the record, by the way, Stanford baseball is 4-0 this season when I've called their games. So just saying. Then in week 8, I had my first real broadcast break that I've had since this season started. I thought maybe a couple of other pockets I might have had one, but truly this was the first one. Couldn't stay away from sports for long, though. I had a pretty unique and brand new experience. I worked as a PA for the first time ever, and I did it for women's tackle football. So the Golden State Storm is in its inaugural season as a team in the Women's National Football Conference, the WNFC. It's a league that now has 16 teams across the country. The home opener was in Oakland and set a league attendance record with 2,123 fans. For me, on a personal level, worlds colliding. There were a few of my broadcasting colleagues from both Stanford and Cal in various roles helping out, plus my old boss and coworker from my last marketing job in tech was also there. Really cool reunion and just multiple positives all the way around. You know, supporting women's sports, helping start something from the ground up, reuniting and working with friends and fun colleagues, and learning something new. All the good things that you want out of an experience, and I think that's why it's important to say yes. We can't do it all. In fact, saying no sometimes is an art. We know what's best for us. But when my old boss called and asked me to be a part of it, a previous version of me might have said no because it was unfamiliar, and that makes it feel like, you know, you could be risking failure, especially for a perfectionist like myself. But sometimes instead of asking yourself why, the better question is, why not? So it was good to step away from softball for a minute to recenter as well. And you can follow the team at Golden State Storm on social media if you want to support. And there are more episodes out now for the D1 softball podcast that you can support. So we interviewed Texas junior and national champion Katie Stewart last week. and Texas Tech two-way star Caitlin Terry in the latest show this week. Both were at the Women's College World Series last year. Katie is such a poised leader for the number one team in the nation right now. The Longhorns are staying so calm and focused this season, even with such high expectations that they set last year. And it's because of players like her. KT is a fierce competitor for the number two team in the nation. The Red Raiders have the best transfer class in the country, including her. And we get her insight, and it's a pretty cool follow-up to my conversation with head coach Jerry Glasgow in the latest episode of this show. So check them out. You can find it on the D1 Softball YouTube or whatever audio platform you use to get your pods, and follow D1 Softball on X and Instagram to stay in the know. In terms of what's coming up, yes, more broadcasts. I am calling non-conference games Thursday through Saturday this weekend since it's Easter weekend, and some ranked matchups that'll be pretty fun. Stanford is hosting Washington. They're going to play a couple of times. Plus, St. Mary's is going to be in town, and they're actually number 21 in the D1 Softball mid-major rankings this week. They're going to play a couple times as well. Washington has a 20-game win streak and the best conference start in program history as the only undefeated Big Ten team left. Plus, they're, of course, familiar foes from the Pac-12 days, but they haven't met since 2024. And there's postseason implications for both the Huskies and the Cardinal. And, alma maters being led by alumni, and they both happen to be Bleavers with Heather Tarr and Jessica Allister. So it's going to be one of the most interesting matchups that we're all going to be tuning into this weekend. And someone else who will be watching all the games around the country is today's guest. So let's head into the interview. She's a UCLA alum and national champion, an HR and business executive, owner of Eagles Nest Media, and just happens to be my boss at D1 Softball, Shelly Carlin. Shelly, this has been a long time coming, to say the least.
Yes, it has been. I've been waiting for the invite. I was so excited when I got it. I couldn't sleep. So I'm super pleased to be here.
I don't know if that's because you were excited or because we're in the middle of softball season, but honestly, I'll take it.
Absolutely. It's been an exciting season too. I mean, gosh, I can't even begin the number of Justin bingo card items that we're looking at with regard to, I can't believe that just happened.
Well, see, and now he can't hold it over you that he has been on the show, Justin McLeod, our colleague, because you now have also been on the show. So, well,
that's good because Justin and I are always a little bit competitive, but it's all right. It's all right. And anybody who knows me knows I'm super competitive. So I'm just going to get that out there right now. So that'll actually probably come up several times during this conversation. So,
well, that's the goal too, is that people can also get to know you, which I'm excited about. And I'll probably learn some things I didn't know too, which is one of my favorite parts.
Good.
So as I was getting ready for this conversation, I was thinking about how you and I watched the very last Pac-12 matchup as we knew it at the time at the World Series back in 2024 with our alma maters, with UCLA and Stanford playing each other, and how you filmed some of our reactions in the press box. Do you still have that footage, by the way?
I do, but because the game did not end the way I wanted, competitive Shelly, I don't think I can watch that again. But no, I do have that footage, and it was so fun. Even though the outcome didn't turn the way that I wanted, it was so fun to be able to be with somebody from the fellow Pac-12 legacy and watch that game how fitting to watch that last Pac-12 matchup in OKC in June. It just encapsulated and put a kind of a very nice cap on, something that was sad for a lot of us. I know you played in the Pac, right? I played before it was the Pac, but I was obviously in a Pac school. I think it was really, really fun to watch that game and really understand and celebrate the legacy of what the Pac-12 meant to college softball.
Yeah, really the foundation for things in a lot of ways. And it was interesting because it was sort of ending that era. But then you and I, that was the first season that we worked together with D1 Softball. Now we're in our third season, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's gone fast. And the game, and you just think about what's happened in the last couple of years, and particularly this year where we've had multiple number ones, we've had, games that come down to quite honestly, more like football scores than softball scores. I mean, the offense is crazy. Lots of individual contributions, lots of expansion opportunities with the new AUSL expansion. So the growth of softball just continues. And while it's part of the larger landscape of the growth of women's sports, I do think it's still a very exciting time to be a part of the softball world.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'm thinking about too, coming off of Women's History Month in March. You and I have had these conversations, but now we get to actually document it for other people to hear how softball really started, especially in the Title IX era. I mean, for you coming up as you're growing up, that's when opportunities first became a thing in the first place.
Absolutely.
How did you get started really with softball specifically?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Title IX was passed. I was in junior high school when Title IX was passed. So I grew up in the 1960s in Central California, and I played baseball because I had a brother. I grew up on a street with all boys, and, kind of that's what you did. So, playing baseball in the street in the 60s and 70s, growing up in a small town about 2 hours from LA. Of course, I was a Dodgers fan, and that was kind of the thing. And then when Title IX happened, by the time I entered high school, that's when you started to see, okay, we got softball. The very first year of softball in my high school was my freshman year. The very first year of girls basketball was my freshman year. So, I truly was there as a participant at the very beginning of things. And, it's just so amazing and so exciting and so gratifying in a lot of ways to see how far the game has come and how far opportunities have come. And in fact, when you talk to young women and young girls who are, playing sports, they can't even imagine a world without it. And that's probably the best part, is that, I'm not one of those to say, oh, back in the old days, we had it so hard and everything. It was different. It was hard. We didn't have all the opportunities, but it's a celebration to me, the fact that now today's girls and women take it for granted that they have these opportunities. And particularly in our sport, now that, we're getting much more momentum on the pro side as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that is the goal, is not necessarily to take it for granted completely. Like, I think it's important actually that we look at our history and where we came from, but to understand and feel like it's common. And this is what we do now every day, is to have these types of opportunities.
Yeah, and I think also part of what happened toward the end of that. So I graduated high school. So I was born in 1961. So think about what was happening in the United States. John F. Kennedy had just been inaugurated. I was born at the beginning of that period. I graduated high school in 1979. If anybody even knows history, the Iran hostage crisis, and the world had changed so much. And within that, in society in the U.S., the role of women had changed just dramatically. Women were admitted to the service academies in 1976. So during that period of time, so the change that we've seen coming through, I think, again, you're exactly right. We should never take it for granted, but we also should, continue to push to be, treated with, equally, not in every single way, because the men and women are different, sports are different, things are different. But I think having that conversation around, we've made, I think we should always remember the progress that we've made, but yet not be satisfied until we're there. But I remember also then in 1991, you may remember this, or at least have studied it. I don't know, Jenna, you're a lot younger than me. 1991, when the IOC announced that softball was going to be on the Olympic program. And that was another turning point milestone. So Title IX, you can look back on, that really started to create opportunities for the college game. I was lucky enough to be in on the very early days of that at UCLA. And then again, you have the 80s and 90s, UCLA and Arizona dominant, but the early 90s, the Olympics became a thing. And so then you saw the rise of the rest of the country investing in softball. And, after the UCLA Arizona dominance in the 80s and 90s, then you see the SEC start programs. And now you have, today, which is, just the number of good softball teams and good softball players right now. You can turn on a game anytime and watch teams that, you never really even focused on, and just some great players, some really, really great players.
Yeah, you're right, because I grew up with the Olympics being the norm or the goal, right? That was the highest goal. And it's changed so much, just the entire landscape, including recruiting. That has changed quite a bit, of course. But for you, I know we've talked about your experience. And you're like, yeah, I was a senior, when I committed, not an eighth grader like we were seeing years ago. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was a very interesting experience. I had already been admitted to UCLA. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to go because financially we weren't sure if we were going to be able to make it work, my family. But so I'd been accepted. It was March of my senior year, and this is 1978, 79. My mom encouraged me to write a letter to the softball coach at UCLA saying, hey, I'm this, I'm that. I'd love to walk on, basically, at that point. And it just so happened Sharon Backus, who was the legendary coach at UCLA, I guess she needed a catcher. So one day in March, she and the women's athletic director show up at a game unannounced in the middle of I grew up in the Central Valley of California, so it's quite rural. So in the middle of a converted cow pasture, I got seen by Sharon Backus and the Judith Holland, who was the women's athletic director at the time. I got a call the next day, and then just like that was it. I was on my way, not just to UCLA, but to realize my educational dreams, but offered a scholarship. And, as I tell everybody, I would not be where I am today without that softball opportunity. No doubt about it, which is why, I'm so passionate about the sport and what we can continue to do to grow it.
Well, whatever you did that day when they came to watch you clearly wasn't cow manure for them to give you that.
Yes. Yes.
But I really like that story because, again, it shows how much things have changed, things have grown. But it was formative for you, right? And we're talking about UCLA here. Like this is, you and I have our fun banter and whatever, but everybody knows, the most national championships in softball. But you were part of the inaugural World Series appearance when it was NCAA sponsored, getting that first national championship. Are you wearing your ring right now, by the way?
I was going to, but I didn't want to offend the Stanford sensibilities since I'm sorry, Jenna. I couldn't resist.
Shocked.
It was, I remember obviously when I came to UCLA, they had just won the AIAW national title in 1978. I came in the fall of 79. Sharon Backus was the coach. Sue Enquist was part of that 78 team, and she was the assistant coach. And I show up, and here I am, a kid from small town, Central California, and to the field walk a couple of players from the Rebestos Breakettes. And if anybody knows anything about softball history, before the days of travel ball, before the days of pro softball, women's amateur softball was the thing, and Rebestos Breakettes were the gold standard. And so right away, I step on the field, and I'm like, on the same team with people I'd only heard about. And so, that was quite the transition. And then the next year, my sophomore year, another Breakette transferred to UCLA. You might have heard of her. Her name's Dot Richardson. So here I am with Dot Richardson, Sheila Cordell Dowdy, who was also an Olympian, Gina Vecchione, who was all Pan Am games, all these great players. And I'm like, how did I end up here? How did this all happen? I just want to go to UCLA, get an education, and play softball, and I get to do it with these folks. So we just had an amazing collection of talent. And so then my junior year, the year we won it, we had two pitchers by the name of Debbie Doom and Tracy Compton. So it would be kind of been funny if we hadn't won it, given the talent that we had. So it reminds me a lot of that day's version of some of the phenomenally talented teams that Oklahoma's had, and just the talent that we've seen. Texas Tech this year, just lots and lots of talent. And that was 1982, and we won the first one, and it's very, very. It's fun for all of us because there's been so many ever since, but the way that UCLA celebrates all of the championships and recognizes all the teams every year, it's pretty special. So we still keep it alive a little bit. Those of us who are still around from the 80s.
Well, so many names that you just listed, and so many more that you could, just from the history of the program itself. Do you think about that? You look at, okay, I was a part of this first national championship. And then now here we are in OKC years later, bonding in the press box over what we're witnessing. But did you take that moment and to step back and think about it?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Every time I go to Oklahoma City. So I've been going to OKC as a fan for 25 years. And obviously now as part of D1 softball. But yeah, I remember it because even though the setting was quite different. So in 1982, we were playing in a public park. It was broadcast though. One time it was not broadcast live. It was tape delayed on ESPN, broadcast several weeks later. We were a couple of years ago celebrating the 40th anniversary of that championship. And we were looking for the video, the tape of that. Nobody could find it. ESPN didn't have it. One of my teammates actually had an old, you may remember this VCR recording of the game. And so some of the footage that you'll now see replayed about that first game is basically because we found it in somebody's basement effectively. But yeah, I think about it all the time. Public park, maybe several hundred people in the stands, if that. But for us, it was the same feeling of winning that the kids get today. And because for us, there was nothing like it. It was the big stage. It was, there weren't a lot of people there, but the kids that were there were asking for our autograph. So it was on a very mini scale the same. And I think about it every year I go back to OKC, I think about it. And I think about, again, over the last 25 years, all the championship games I've seen, all the great players that have come beyond and, Lisa Fernandez and all the different Bruins, but also the Kat Ostermans and the Monica Abbotts. So yeah, I do think about that, and I reflect on how cool it is to have been there at the beginning, but also to have the opportunity to still be part of softball, 40 some odd years later.
That's something that always sticks out to me about you, is this balance of the history, knowing the foundation that's there, where things came from, even before your time, right? And what you helped build, but also how present you are now. And that's related to our work at D1 softball, but also seeing you do things like, and I'm going to brag on you, Shelly, sorry if you're uncomfortable, but sorry, not sorry. A $1 million donation, which was the largest from a former female student athlete at UCLA. That was to endow the head coaching position that Kelly Inouye Perez, who we all see on TV all the time, her position as the head coach. Plus, you'd been involved in scholarships and a Legends Wall and leadership programs and all kinds of things with the program. This is as an alum. What made you decide to take that step as well with your journey with staying with softball?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the fact that I was able to step on the UCLA campus and get, a world-class education, both undergrad and graduate school. First in my father's side of the family to ever graduate from college, to kind of really live the American dream because of that scholarship. I would not have been. Now I probably could have gone to a smaller school, a community college, and still got an education because I was determined to do that. But the fact that I was able to be placed in UCLA, phenomenal education, phenomenal opportunities in one of the greatest cities in the world, as well as play the game that I loved and learn those skills. In fact, I argue all the time that my career success is probably a little bit more attributable to the lessons I learned as part of the softball program than the coursework I learned in the undergrad or grad programs at UCLA. I'm sure my professors would hate to hear me say that, but I mean, it's the leadership lessons that you learn. It's the competitiveness, it's the drive, it's the resiliency. We're a failure sport. People talk about that all the time. So the ability to come back and continue to, adapt and evolve. So, I do think that the reason that I started to give back was once I started to realize that the character attributes and the behavioral things that you learn as an athlete were the ones that are driving my career success. I'm like, this success really isn't mine. It belongs to UCLA. It belongs to, there's lots of programs I support financially and with my time. I support my hometown Cal State campus. I support, other schools because there are other kids like me out there who just need that one break, who just need that one, kind of thing to go right for them. And to the extent that I can help in any way, both financially with my time and, we haven't talked about this yet, but with the role that D1 softball can play, is just paying back for me being, lucky enough to have had that opportunity with Sharon Backus and Judy Holland walking into a cow pasture field and seeing me play on a March day in 1979.
See, and this is something else that we share. You mentioned your first generation college grad on your dad's side. Maiden name Aguilar, too. So we share this. We've talked about this, Latinas from Southern California. I was in a similar situation where if it had it not been for scholarship opportunities that softball provided, that women's sports provided essentially, I probably would have went to a community college too and taken a different path just from a financial standpoint. But then look at us from different generations, but still UCLA, Stanford, and what we were able to do because of these types of opportunities. And I very much recognize that mine wouldn't have been there had people like you not already paved the way.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing, that there are still people out there who need that, that break. So it's not like, we've arrived and we can just sit back. There are always people to reach with this sport, both young girls. And I look at, so we haven't talked about this in a while, but if you look at the whole travel ball system, the feeder system to college sports, it is getting more and more out of reach of some aspects of society. And so to the extent we can do things to help, broaden the reach of little girls that want to play softball, regardless of their economic means, that's another area, again, to continue to recognize that there are people out there who just need that opportunity. And when they get the opportunity, they're going to compete. I've said this 3 times already in this session. I am, super competitive, and all I wanted was a chance. And as soon as I got that chance, I'm like, just let me show you what I can do. So I really do think there's still room in our game and our sport and in women's sports generally to make sure that we're not, that we're taking care and being aware of where that talent is. Because, opportunities are not equally distributed, but talent, I Bleav, is equally distributed amongst people. And so there's great talent everywhere. And I think if we can help go find that talent and raise it up, that's kind of where I am in my life stage of what I want to be doing, is how can I help with that?
Do you consider it giving back or paying it forward?
Both. I think, look, I was a political science and history major undergrad, so I really feel it's super important to understand the context of things and why we are where we are, and to pay back things like, for the people that helped me along the way. So here's a good example. My freshman year in high school was the first year of softball. They had to go around and find a softball coach. So what did they do back then? There was no, there weren't no softball coaches. There were boys baseball coaches, but nobody was going to come and coach a girls softball team. So they got a couple of PE teachers for a couple of years. And then finally my senior year, the guy that had been the men's baseball or the boys baseball coach, who had retired from coaching, but was still teaching, decided to coach us my senior year, partly because he knew he had me and a couple others on the team a couple others went on to also play college softball. One was on the Cal State Fullerton national championship team a couple of years after me. So he came in specifically because he knew he had some kids that could benefit. This was a former minor league baseball player, and just really, so I think about him all the time, how he elevated us that last year. And so part of what I do is, like, he would want me to do this because he did it, right? But then looking forward, the athletes that I work with athletes across many universities, working on leadership development programs. And part of what I talk to them about is you don't have to wait until you're, my age to start helping, right? So, and then I think that's what I love about this generation of athletes, is they really get that. They really are already starting to pay it forward to the next generation. So I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would expect nothing else in your answer. I would have been shocked if you would have picked one over the other, because I do think, again, you're really great at thinking about both, looking back and looking forward at the same time. And that's a skill. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah, I think it also goes to my corporate career. So I spent my corporate career in iconic brand companies, many of whom had lost their way a bit. I like to fix problems. I like to go in and rebuild. And so part of what I learned in my corporate career is, if you want to make progress, you can't force. The best way to make progress to us is to understand where people are and build upon the things that made a company or an organization or a team great. Don't throw everything out and say, hey, we're going to start all over, new sheriff in town, everything. The worst thing you can do is say everything you did was wrong. You have to understand and respect and honor what was done in the past because it was successful in the past. And so things at times have changed. You need to evolve. But my corporate career really gave me that skill and that ability to say, okay, how did we get here? What are the important things that need to be preserved about the prior culture, the prior way of doing things that we can build on? And there's hard conversations because you do have to change some things, but almost never will you find a program or an organization or an individual who's been successful who now is doing everything completely wrong. And so there's nothing to be gained and moved forward and built upon. So I think a lot of people try to come in when they think they have a turnaround and they just try to like say, we're going to wipe the slate clean. And I think that's a mistake, to be honest.
This is not unlike teams. And there's a reason why a lot of executives, the vast majority of female executives played sports. It's because of these types of learnings. You touched on it earlier, the lessons that you took from being an athlete, from playing softball into your corporate life. And you're very entrepreneurial. You're very focused on that leadership development. By the way, everybody, not just undergrad at UCLA, but she got an MBA there too. She was an academic All-American. So I just need that noted as well for the record. And you talked about some of the different companies you worked for, like Motorola is a big one in terms of just what people would recognize. But what made you decide, human resources on the business side, the people aspect?
It's interesting. So the end of my first year of MBA school, I had started as a marketing kind of concentration. And I took my first human resources class and I'm like, this is it. It was the perfect blend I was a political science undergrad. So political science, very, kind of very related to understanding power and power structures of people and what people do. So that's a lot of what HR is. So I took my first human resource class. There's also part of HR is labor relations, and there's a lot of history. And so I could see all the threads of what I liked and what I enjoyed kind of came together in this HR class. And so I kind of had my career was focused both in human resources as well as I did several years in finance roles. So I have both of those. And I think it really was this. I've always been fascinated by power and people and how things get done in organizations. And also at the micro level, I love watching people practice their craft. So when I watch you and Justin, for example, I'm like, and some of the questions I ask you may be really annoying, but it's really my curiosity about like, how do you go about doing this? Like, what is your prep? How do you learn this? How do you know? So I'm really also fascinated about work, the role that work plays in people's lives, how people go about mastery, going back to athletics, like, it is. And part of the reason I think I chose business school over other grad schools was I felt like, and I still feel like business is as close to the competitive buzz that you get from sports as anything. So I kind of wanted to, replicate that as well. So yeah, that's how I ended up in HR. Did a tour of duty in finance because obviously I had an MBA, because you really cannot be a successful business person without understanding the finance side of things. And really enjoyed the finance side of things. And then, kind of made my way back ultimately to the chief HR role at Motorola before I kind of retired, but not really.
You've done that a few times, I think.
I fail retirement routinely.
Well, I'm grateful for that personally. And thinking back on some of our team meetings for D1, I already knew some of this, right? But again, I'm learning new things too as we're having these conversations. I'm thinking back and I'm like, yeah, some of these things really track, through your background. But that does bring us to the media side of sports. You and I have talked about this. It's been a little while, though. It's a nice refresher for us and then great for everyone else to hear. What is your why for getting involved on the media side?
Yeah, I think so. Pre-COVID, I started to do a lot of work, not just philanthropic and donor kind of things with schools, UCLA and many others, but as I said, kind of getting involved in translating what I knew and did in the corporate side into college sports. And the goal was, wow, I started to realize that my success in the corporate world was directly straight line to the behaviors and experience of a student athlete. So I created a nonprofit in, around the time 2014, 2015, that really went into programs and accelerated, would take a typical leadership development course that you would get in a large corporation, accelerated it down and made it applicable to the student athlete experience. Because everybody would tell student athletes, and they still do, don't worry, you're going to be great. Companies love athletes. They recruit athletes. You're going to be fine. And then they walk away and the athlete's like, okay, what does that mean? I mean, am I supposed to trust that? So the whole purpose of what the work I did then was to actually help athletes connect those dots. So we would do things like, okay, here's all the things that you do every day. This is what it's called in the corporate world, and this is how to communicate it to a recruiter. So things like we would do mock interviews. We would obviously resume. We did a mock salary negotiation. So you get your first job offer. How do you think about it? How do you go? And I would bring in, colleagues, professional colleagues, to actually give them real life experiences. We would do, we started with some psychological assessments so that you could start to learn yourself and your who you're going to be as a leader. And we did some outdoor kind of, work and experiences. So we did all that. And I did that across multiple sports. But then COVID hit, and obviously because it was an in-person thing, it kind of got shut down like everything else. But I started to realize I wanted to focus more on softball. It was great. I love my working. We work with volleyball players and basketball players and soccer players, but I really wanted to come back to, again, this full circle to what was the source of my career success, and that's softball. So post COVID, I started to think about, okay, we restarted doing some of the leadership stuff again, but it was just really by chance that I had followed Justin McLeod. Who hasn't? If you're a softball nerd fan who does not know Justin, then you will at some point. So I just struck up a online conversation with him, met him at the Clearwater tournament in 2023, I guess it was. We just started chatting, and I'm like, look, I'm really super involved in, this space, and how can we elevate softball media, and he created softball coverage effectively. So one thing led to another, and we, kind of decided to partner up, and timing being what it is, shortly toward the end of 2023, Kyle Peterson at D1 Baseball, who also owned D1 Softball, happened to be going through a leadership transition on D1 Softball side, and so reached out to us. And so January 2024, we joined the D1 Softball team. And I think you were probably my first call after the announcement. I'm like, okay, I need to get Jenna. How do I do that? Didn't hurt that Kyle's also a Stanford alum, so I think he helped that. And as I recall, he brought the Stanford posse with him to help convince you to join the team. He brought the big guns in. So, but yeah, it was much more of I want to do something more in softball. When I ran human resources at Motorola, I had human resources and communications, which oftentimes HR people have both sides. So I had some experience in communications, and I just landed here. So it was kind of like that cow pasture moment. So Kyle found me. Kyle was the modern day Sharon Backus, who kind of found me and found Justin, brought us in, and we started in January of 2023, which I don't recommend anybody starting to run a softball website the month before the season starts, but that's what we were faced with. So we kind of brought you on, and really had just a blast. I mean, I guess the thing I would say about the D1 softball experience, yes, there's lots of things we want to do with it. And yes, we can talk about that in the role it plays, but it's just fun, It's just fun. Like, I watch softball all the time anyway, and now I get to do this. I get to do this, right? So it's just the fun and the joy and watching all these games and being around you guys. You guys are like, that's fun. That's a whole nother level of fun. So.
Especially delirious in the press box at the World Series with weather delays and all of those things. I think that first year in 2024, I think you said that a bunch of times. Like, I'm having so much fun, which yes, I appreciated it. I think Justin did too, right? Because that is kind of the point. And even players talk about that. Like, hey, softball's supposed to be fun. I have to remind myself that sometimes.
Yeah.
So for us,
we sometimes take it too seriously. I mean, at the end of the day, and then when we talk about D1 softball and what we want to do and accomplish with this is, we have a couple of core values, and one of those is passion for the game. That everything that we do needs to remember that it's because we're all doing this because of our love of this game. And sometimes, we can all kind of get sideways with that, but if we keep rooted in that as the reason that we're doing this, and if it ever stopped being fun, then we got to figure out why is it not fun anymore and how do we fix that. So it's softball is because I felt like it's time for me to come back to the core and the roots of where I started. And timing and good fortune, and now, like I said, and just focusing on doing what we can do to grow the sport, to provide that authoritative, independent voice, but having fun along the way, because that's the most important thing.
One of the things I've appreciated working with you too is how much you want to learn. You said it earlier, like you're asking questions. And some people might be like, but she's a business executive, look at this career she's had. Why in the world is she like asking these people questions? But that part is so crucial, I think, in life, let alone in work or in sports, just in life, to be able to be, I feel like it's a buzzword now, or a buzz phrase to say lifelong learner. But it does seem that way with you. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. In fact, the reason in addition to D1 softball, I still work in an HR related professional capacity. I work for an organization called the CHRO Association. And basically it's an organization that represents the chief HR officers of the largest global companies in the United States. And we do casual. Yes. and we do, public policy advocacy at the DC level, but we also do practice. So our goal is to really help give the CHROs, chief HR officers, a place to go to talk about what's going on, to understand how the profession is evolving, to talk about common issues. And right now, of course, as you can imagine, our number one issue is AI. And our number two issue and our number three issue, right? So a good example of how I think it's super exciting to be kind of going through the possibilities of AI. Now, it's easy for me to say because I'm not in the workforce the way I was 20 or 30 years ago, but the possibilities and learning all about AI and taking what AI can do and applying it to what I know about organizations and structures and how work gets done. And people ask me all the time, why do you still work? I'm like, because it's fun, because I'm to your point, oh my gosh, I get to learn all about this and I get to make a contribution to my profession that gave me such a wonderful career and a wonderful life. I get to make a contribution by saying, hey, here's how I think we can start thinking about how do you balance the potential negative impacts of artificial intelligence, the human impacts, with the true positive potential that AI has to make work better, to make lives better, to make, everything better. So, I'm not saying it's all upside, because it's not, and there's going to be disruption like any technology change. But the chance to be there, to learn all of that, and you just can't do that without diving in and learning it. I couldn't just sit back there and say, oh, well, back in my day, this is how we did the transition to email. I mean, that's not, nobody wants to hear that. I need to be able to go in there and understand what AI is doing to then have some credibility to continue. And I look at it more as, how do I continue to stay relevant? And you have to learn. By staying relevant means you have to continue to learn and let go of old paradigms at times. Like, okay, I'll give you a good example of, in the softball world, letting go of an old paradigm. I was a catcher, that.
Yep. I
was a catcher in an era where we won 1-0 most of the time. Where the team high batting average one year that I played was 250, 270, I think. Where we would have maybe one home run a year. Like Megan Grant would have more home runs in a game than our entire team had in a year. So that was a hard one for me to let go of, the, pitching and defense, and, but now that I have, it's, I'll always love a good pitcher and a good game call and, great strategy about how to approach hitters. But if you look at the game and what offense has done for the game, the growth of the game, I think, is directly related to the fact that when we move the pitching, it started when we moved the pitching rubber in, we moved the pitching rubber back, and I think it's just taken off from there.
And not the white ball anymore.
Oh, well, yeah, the white ball, not even with any colored thread. When I first started, it was a white ball with white threads. So yeah. Good luck trying to hit that.
What else sticks out to you when you think about, okay, this is what my experience was as a player, but now the game has evolved so much?
I think it's the support and the resources that they have, which is phenomenal. Again, I mean, everything from we had to buy our own equipment, buy our own gloves, buy your own bats, buy your own shoes, that kind of stuff. But that's kind of on the surface. But I think support, meaning truly helping student athletes navigate this, being a student and being an athlete, the academic support that they have, the well-being support that they have. And I actually think that as we talk about how college athletics is changing and how not just NIL, but the kind of the legal challenges to the amateur model, this is going to become even more important about how athletic departments think about what is it that's going to make you different? What is it you're going to offer prospective athletes that makes them want to choose you? And so this is, again, full circle moment. This is what companies deal with every day. What am I going to offer to an employee to make them want to join me and not go somewhere else? Some companies compete with money. Like, we're just going to pay you, right? And that works. And so you've seen that in college athletics. We're just going to lean into the financial side. That works. You may win championship or two. But I also think that not everybody can afford that. Not everybody's, kind of blessed with that kind of resource. And B, to me, a sustainable approach to that, it's got to go beyond the money. It's got to go to what else are you offering? What are you offering the softball player who truly wants to develop? Wants to get better, either because they think they can make the pros or the Olympic team, or just wants to get better, right? What are you going to do? Obviously, academics and careers. So we've always had that, but in an era where people are questioning the economic value of a college degree, I think you have to work a lot harder to justify what it is you're going to be career ready when you come out. What are you going to do about their well-being? What are you going to do to support them both physically and mentally, and feeling like they belong? Because it is a tough thing to do, to be a competitive student athlete. How are you going to create a community? And then also and then the financial side and the recognition side and the being something, greater than part of yourself. So I think athletic departments have to think about all of these things, and in terms of how it's changed. We came because we want to play. We want to go to UCLA to get the degree, and we love to play the game. So it was quite simple, right? Yeah. It's so much harder now, and I think athletic departments. And I think this is where, and I do a lot of work with a couple of athletic departments here, and so what I'm advising them is, you need to think about what we call your promise. What are you going to offer that's going to differentiate you to answer the question, why should I come to you? And it's not just money, and it's not just championships. You have to think about the whole person.
Yeah. The big picture of college athletics today. Yeah. And as we've gone through this D1 softball journey in the recent years, how do you feel media plays into that?
Yeah, I think it really, I think it plays into this in terms of our goal. I'll speak for D1, and then I'll talk about the larger landscape of media, is to really provide an independent, comprehensive resource for people who want to follow college softball. Anybody I don't really, anybody who loves this game. And that's the one thing I love about this game, is it is a great leveler. I mean, people from all walks of life can come together around what is just such a fun experience. It's fun because it's a fast game. The players are so skilled. The players are having fun, You know, we get a lot of criticism from baseball purists about why do you cheer in the dugout, but that's part of the game, right? The culture. So we want to be able to provide that resource for you, where you can find anything you want to know about teams, their performance, their data, players, basic statistics, advanced statistics, comprehensive coverage of what's going on, both on our website, but also in your world, Jenna, with the digital content that you do. So I think the role that we play is to provide the most comprehensive coverage of the game that we can, so that we can meet the needs of any softball fan, whatever they desire. So I think that's the role we play. Independent, always, calling it as we see it, if you will, having integrity, reporting the facts, and as I said before, being really cognizant of what's at the root of this is our love for the game itself. Nobody, no person, no outlet, no reporter, no owner is bigger than the game itself. So I think that's the role we want to try to play, is to always be there for any fan who needs anything related to the game. We want to be that destination. For the media generally, I do think that there's opportunity, because softball fans are not monolithic. They don't all want the same thing. So I think there's opportunity for others to come into space and just expand the awareness of the game, and I think that's a good thing. The more, the more the better. The more people that want to cover this sport and talk about this sport, the better. I mean, look at women's basketball as a comparison. I mean, everybody's talking about the women's NCAA tournament and how exciting it is. I mean, it's been building. It had a big boost with Caitlin Clark, but now you just look at it. My Washington D.C. work, we start the first, couple minutes of the Zoom call this week talking about the Final Four on the women's side. And so it's like, when would that ever happen? So again, I think other people who want to come in the space and talk about softball and cover softball and celebrate softball, I think it's nothing but a good thing.
Mayhem growing to become what March Madness is.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. And I also have to give a shout out to the reason we're here. Again, here's me looking back again. The reason we're here at D1 Softball is because of the vision of the folks at D1 Baseball, Kyle Peterson, Kendall Rogers. I can't emphasize enough how important their vision and their idea of starting D1 Softball was to what we have today. They didn't have to do that. They have a brilliant franchise in D1 Baseball. But for them to take a chance, and they did it right during COVID, so it was a kind of a tough period of time. But yeah, Kyle and Kendall, they're just really deserve a ton of the credit for boosting us with their knowledge, their experience, their brand, and I'm just thankful that they chose me to be the custodian of what they had created.
As the game has evolved, the media side and coverage has grown as well. And I feel like Kyle became a softball fan, right? Like in
Absolutely.
the process of starting this. And that's also the goal for all of us. So I couldn't agree more.
So it's really ironic that I'm sitting here saying all this great stuff about two Stanford grads.
That was really the goal of this.
I'm going to be in UCLA penalty box. I don't know. No, we like you guys. We like you guys much better now that we're not in the same conference. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, it's a little friendlier now. There's like the familiarity there too. So
and we can bond over having to travel across the country for
very true
conference games.
And you and I definitely have.
Yes.
Well, also I want to take this opportunity for us to talk about what people can get out of D1 Softball. If you go to d1softball.com, what's your elevator pitch, Shelly? Let's go.
Our elevator pitch. We are the destination for college softball fans that just want to know anything and everything about the game. Period. Full stop. From individual player statistics to team statistics to rankings to feature stories, and not just to mention the most comprehensive scoreboard of anywhere in the college game. And that in and of itself is a huge resource to college softball fans. I'll also say one of the things I'm most proud that we've done in the last 2 years is really elevate the profile of mid-majors.
Yeah.
So I've been a huge mid-major fan. I live out here in California, as do you, and there's a lot of really good softball. In fact, some people would be surprised to note that what we would consider two of what we would consider mid-majors actually won a Division I championship back in the day, Cal State Fullerton and Fresno State, right? So I'm a huge mid-major fan. Justin McLeod is clearly, and his innovation and us creating the first mid-major ranking process and product last year was just, I think, a huge leap forward in terms of broadening the reach and recognizing that great softball happens at all levels, and the game gives to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a Power Four or a mid-major. The game gives you what you put into it, and we're just super proud to recognize that. So comprehensive coverage of everybody, plus we also broaden our reach to beyond what you would see typically.
Everybody means everybody, right?
Everybody means everybody. Yes. Yeah. And you, who are also as part of the panel that picks you do our staff picks every week. You guys do pick everybody. When I see those picks, I'm like, wow, that's an interesting game. That's going to be fun. I'm going to watch it now. I'm going to watch it just to see if Jenna or Justin picked correctly. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Justin's tracking this season too, so I'm like, oof, all right, a little extra.
I know. Yeah, a little extra pressure. Yeah. Well, I might, if you need a hand picking, let me know. I'll give you my 2 cents.
I might phone a friend at some point. Yes,
absolutely.
I'll keep you posted, and I'll do the shameless plug because I've told you before too. Just as a broadcaster, I was a subscriber already to D1 Softball. Mm-hmm. Before I joined, you joined January 2024. I joined February, right? But before that even. And now I still dive into it for that part of my career, let alone, what we do together on the work.
Yeah.
But D1softball.com, D1 Softball on social channels, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of the main channels. YouTube is a big one. We have all of our podcasts there too. The D1 Softball podcast in the Circle, which you can follow as well, the longest running softball podcast in existence, we Bleav. And so I think you can just dive into absolutely anything. And I tell this audience that, but I think they have even more of a picture with our conversation now too.
Well, and I was going to talk about our digitals coverage, but I think you covered it. But I also would say what our website does is this is a place to go if you want to find out the what, right? Mm. If you want to get a feel for the why we're so passionate about softball, the color, it's the color commentary. It's our goal on digital side, and I think you've done a phenomenal job with this, is helping our fans, our subscribers, the public get a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be there. Yeah. So your digital interviews that you and Justin do all over the country. I've been known to do a couple myself out here every so often. Not too many, but a couple. That to our coverage of some of the super regionals, to our World Series coverage, our goal really is, and I think you guys have just, really done a phenomenal job with this, is to help people feel like what it's like to be there. Because let's face it, Oklahoma City particularly is a bucket list item for a lot of people. And to the extent we can help people experience that and maybe start to put that on their bucket list and come out someday, that would be a huge win for us.
Well said. Good job, Shelly. Put you on the spot there, and you crushed it. Hit a home run. So even if you only had one all season from your team, you just hit the one today.
I was. So look, I would not even be able to see the fence. So my job, I hit second. I hit behind Dot Richardson. My Dot would get on somehow, and my job would be to move her over with a bunt and pray that Sheila Cornell would hit her in. And that was kind of my 4 years.
Well, Bruin Bubble is strong to this day.
Bruin Bubble is strong. Yes.
Well, honestly, we could talk forever, and we actually often do in our team.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We're not. I fail the managing a meeting according to time when you guys are on the call. But again, no, thanks for this. This has been a fun conversation. Thanks for the work that you do for softball. Talking about paying it forward. We obviously are from different generations, but we share this same love for this game, and I think the desire to continue to give back. So I appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, thanks, Shelly. Your check's in the mail. Don't you worry.
No, that's my line.
That's true. That's true. Role reversal. But before I let you go, just a quick game that I do with every guest that you're not getting out of.
Oh, I knew you were going to do this. Okay.
Yes. I was going to say, you've listened to the pod before. You know what's coming. So safe or out. I think you know the rules, but I'll bring up a topic. If you agree you like it, it's safe. If not, then it's out. Okay.
All right.
You said it. Former catcher. So first one is obstruction rule. Safe or out?
Out. It's just it. I don't know I don't have an answer to how to fix it, but it's just not working. Back in my day, there was no such rule. So I wanted to say safe because we could do whatever we wanted back in my day. I don't think that's the answer, but it's still just not working.
Yeah. I would have been shocked had you said safe. I would have been like, wait, what? Who
as a catcher, I would have loved it because, like I said, we didn't have any rules. We basically just blocked the plate and put our shoulder in.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. So from that, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that was the first one. Second one is we touched on this a little bit, but conference realignment. Safe or out?
I'm gonna have to say out just because. For a couple of things. One, obviously, I think the most for our sport, the most successful conference ever is no longer. But more than that, what I don't like about it is it makes it now impossible for everybody to play everybody. So unless we fix this, inequity in terms of who you play, right? Mm-hmm. So arguably some schools are going to have an easier conference slate just by the luck of the draw.
Right.
Than others. And I'm not saying there's anything nefarious going on. It's just luck, right?
It just is what it is when it's a mega conference.
It is what it is, right? Yeah. And, somebody who might have been good last year and you got them on your schedule this year, maybe they're not. So unless we figure out a way to somehow balance that, I think that's the thing I really don't like about it is you don't play everybody. And that to me leads to some inequities in the level of challenge in your schedule.
Yeah. I did appreciate that from my experience as a student athlete, getting to play everybody every year and go everywhere. Even if you alternated years, you got to play everywhere, no matter what. So that was appreciated. Okay. Last one for you is bat flips. Safe or out?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go old school. Out. But look, you can't take the Bruin bubble out of me entirely. Totally. That's just not how we were, don't embarrass the pitcher. Don't embarrass the other team. Respect the game. It's not about you. I know it's hugely unpopular. Come at me. It's okay. That I am allowed to be like old school once on this podcast. So yeah, out.
You're allowed to do that. And honestly, I don't know that a single Bruin that I have had on this show has ever said safe now that I think about it. So,
okay, yeah. Good. I can keep my Bruin card for another day. Good.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, Shelly. It was nice to have a quote unquote meeting with you. That was, awesome. Not for work, but more so for fun, even though our work is fun, like we said. So it all blurs together.
That's what it's all about. And thank you, as I said. And part of the joy of having D1 is to be able to give you and Justin and the rest of our team, Jenna, Riley and Rhiannon, the opportunity and the platform to just be, just be your softball selves. So it's a thrill for me. So thanks for having me.
Finally, I had Shelly on the show. Like I said, this is our third season working together with D1 softball. So it was a long time coming. And I told her this, and I'll reiterate, I appreciate that she's part of important history and also trying to make an impact on women's sports moving forward. Very cool balance. So with that, let's bring it home. You've been listening to Bleav in Softball, part of Bleav Network, presented by FanDuel. The show is available anywhere you get your podcasts, wherever you listen, including Bleav.com and YouTube too. Subscribe to the show, rate the show. If you liked it, write a review. Follow us on X and Instagram at Bleav in Softball. Again, that's BLEAV. And you can reach out to me personally on X at Jenna Becerra01 and Instagram at Jenna Becerra as well. Keep catching new episodes every other week this season. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. Catch you soon.